In the highest echelons of the fine art world, people worship the auction block. They applaud when a painting sells for $50 million, hypnotized by the glamour, the champagne, and the sheer velocity of the money. But they don't understand the truth. Art is not born in an auction house. It is resurrected in a laboratory. To restore a 500-year-old masterpiece, you are engaging in microscopic warfare. You use toxic solvents, scalpels, and ultraviolet spectroscopy to remove centuries of dirt, smoke, and crude overpainting, 1 millimeter at a time. One heavy-handed scrape, one drop of the wrong chemical, and a priceless piece of human history is permanently erased. I have spent my entire life as a chemical surgeon for the past, patiently bringing lost ghosts back to life. I just never realized that the most dangerous, toxic layer of deception I would ever encounter was painted directly over my own marriage. My name is Lucian. I'm 39 years old, and I am a master art conservator and chemical analyst. 6 years ago, I married Vivian. Vivian was a high-powered, fiercely ambitious director for a contemporary art gallery. She thrived in the pristine, brightly lit world of elite art dealers, VIP exhibitions, and wealthy international collectors. I was the quiet, obsessive chemist who spent 14 hours a day in a windowless lab, smelling like volatile solvents and dust. We were opposites, but I thought we were building an empire. I resurrected the art, and she sold the story. 4 years ago, I bought a seemingly worthless, badly damaged 19th century portrait at an estate sale for $400. But under the X-ray fluorescence scanner in my lab, I saw the ghost underneath. For 4 agonizing years, I worked in absolute secrecy. Working centimeter by centimeter, I dissolved the cheap 19th century overpaint to reveal what lay beneath. It was a lost masterpiece, an undocumented, flawless 16th century portrait by a direct pupil of Leonardo da Vinci. Independent authentication experts I confidentially consulted estimated its auction value at a staggering $50 million. I promised Vivian this painting was our legacy. I told her that when I finished the final varnish and secured the official provenance documents, we would be art royalty. She would never have to hustle for a commission again. But Vivian didn't want to wait for the final layer to dry. She looked at my stained lab coat and my exhausted eyes, and she decided she wanted the $50 million without having to share it with the janitor who cleaned the canvas. And she found a billionaire broker who was more than willing to help her steal it.
The decay in our marriage accelerated the moment Vivian's gallery partnered with a massive global antiquity syndicate. The CEO of that syndicate was a man named Tristan. Tristan was 45 years old and the absolute poster boy for everything corrupt in the art world. He couldn't paint, he couldn't restore, and he couldn't tell the difference between a Renaissance original and a clever modern forgery without an expert standing next to him. He was a ruthless corporate financier based in Geneva who moved unregistered, untaxed masterpieces through international free ports for anonymous oligarchs. He wore custom Italian suits, flew on a private jet, and treated brilliant working-class conservators like disposable factory workers. Suddenly, Vivian was spending all her time flying to Tristan's high-security free port in Switzerland, claiming she was advising him on a massive new luxury acquisition strategy. The red flags didn't just quietly appear. They flared under the blacklight. First, the profound, unapologetic disrespect. Vivian started actively belittling my scientific process. "Lucian, you need to wake up," she scoffed one evening, tossing her $5,000 designer handbag onto my cleanroom table. "Tristan manages a $500 million portfolio. He controls the market. You're just a guy playing with Q-tips and paint thinner in a basement. You lack corporate vision. Nobody cares about your chemical purity. They care about the signature on the appraisal." Second, the intense, unnatural secrecy regarding her devices. Vivian changed the passcode on her phone and her laptop. She started taking crisis logistics calls in her car, sitting in the driveway with the engine running for 40 minutes before coming inside. Third, and by far the most terrifying, was her sudden, highly specific interest in the security of my laboratory. Vivian, a woman who absolutely loathed the chemical smell of my workspace, suddenly asked me exactly where I kept the physical, notarized provenance documents for the Da Vinci pupil painting and when the final protective varnish would be applied to the canvas. When a gallery director suddenly cares about the physical location of unauctioned multi-million-dollar authentication papers, you don't answer the question. You put the canvas under an X-ray and you look for the hidden dagger.
When you have a historical artifact worth $50 million resting in your laboratory, you don't just rely on a padlock. My entire facility was routed through a custom telemetry mainframe. It monitored temperature, humidity, and atmospheric pressure. But to ensure absolute security, the system also utilized highly sensitive thermal imaging cameras linked directly to my private server. One Saturday night, while Vivian was supposedly at a weekend gallery retreat in the city, my phone vibrated with a critical priority alert from the lab. I pulled my car into an empty parking lot, opened my secure server app, and tapped into the live thermal feed. I didn't just find an affair. I found a premeditated, multi-million-dollar act of international smuggling and arson. I watched the thermal outlines of Vivian and Tristan walking through my sanctuary. I immediately logged into her iCloud account, which was still synced to our home desktop, and opened her encrypted messaging app. Tristan wrote, "The Saudi buyer in Geneva is fully confirmed. He will pay $50 million in untraceable cryptocurrency the moment my authenticator verifies the painting in the Freeport. Have you secured the provenance papers in the canvas?" Vivian replied, her words dripping with a casual, horrifying cruelty that made the blood freeze in my veins. "I copied the master authentication files from his safe last night. Tomorrow, when Lucian flies to the Conservation Summit in Chicago, you bring your specialized transport crew. We load the painting into the climate-controlled crate. Before we leave, I'll intentionally knock over a gallon of highly flammable acetone near the electrical breaker. The lab will burn to the ground. We'll tell him a chemical fire destroyed his life's work. He'll be completely devastated." Tristan responded, "It's flawless. The poor janitor won't even know what hit him. He won't have the money to fight my lawyers. We'll be in Monaco by the weekend." I sat alone in the sweltering cab of my car, staring at the glowing monitor as my entire reality shattered. My wife of 6 years was sleeping with a corporate parasite. Together, they were actively plotting to steal 4 years of my blood, sweat, and genius, intentionally commit arson to burn down my laboratory, sell my masterpiece to a billionaire, and leave me utterly destroyed, believing my work was ashes. They thought I was just a naive janitor who cleaned paint. They didn't understand the level of absolute, unmitigated chemical destruction a master conservator is capable of synthesizing.
If you want to destroy a fraudulent art broker, you don't burn down his gallery. You let him steal the masterpiece. You let him fly it across the world. You let him invite the wealthiest buyers on the planet into his vault, and then you quietly let the chemistry do its job. I didn't confront her. If I did, Tristan's army of corporate lawyers would bury me in injunctions, claim Vivian was a legal partner in my business, and tie the painting up in court for a decade while it rotted in an evidence locker. I needed them to steal the painting. I needed Tristan to proudly present my creation to a ruthless billionaire. And as a master conservator, I would never allow a real 500-year-old masterpiece to be destroyed. So I went to work on the molecular level. That night, while Vivian was fast asleep, I went into the lab. Working with absolute agonizing precision, I carefully packed the real priceless Renaissance painting into an armored climate-controlled case. I drove it to a highly secure private bank vault across the state and locked it away. Then I turned my attention to the trap. I have access to high-resolution 3D topographical printers. I printed a flawless textured replica of the canvas. Using actual period-accurate 16th century pigments I had mixed myself, I painted a visually perfect reproduction of the masterpiece. To the naked eye, and even to a corporate CEO like Tristan, it looked and felt absolutely authentic. But I am a master of chemistry. I didn't just leave it at that. When a $50 million painting is sold privately, the buyer always brings an independent authenticator, and the absolute first thing an authenticator does is shine a high-intensity ultraviolet UV light over the entire canvas to check for modern overpainting and verify the age of the varnish. I synthesized a highly specific dormant photo-reactive polymer. I applied it as the final layer of varnish over the replica. Under normal gallery lighting or even in pitch darkness, the polymer was perfectly stable and crystal clear. It looked like aged, flawless Renaissance lacquer. But I engineered the chemical bonds to react violently to intense ultraviolet light. The moment a UV authentication lamp hit the surface of that canvas, the polymer wouldn't just fluoresce, it would catastrophically oxidize. Within 5 seconds of UV exposure, the clear varnish would rapidly boil, aggressively expanding and turning into a thick, opaque, bubbling, pitch-black sludge. It would completely obliterate the painting, destroying the image and looking exactly like a modern, highly toxic chemical fake. I placed the booby-trapped replica
replica exactly where the master painting used to be. I kissed Vivian goodbye on Thursday morning. "Have a good weekend, Vivian," I said smoothly. "I'll be in Chicago until Sunday. Please keep an eye on the lab." "Of course, baby," she lied, giving me a sweet, empty smile. "Travel safe." I let her bring the thieves into my sanctuary. I let them steal the bomb. Now, they just had to shine a light on it.
I didn't fly to Chicago. I drove straight to the downtown offices of an attorney specializing in international art heritage law and the FBI's art crime team. I handed my lawyer my original, time-stamped chemical logs, the official federal copyright and provenance applications for the discovered painting, and the crystal-clear chat logs of Vivian and Tristan explicitly conspiring to steal the canvas and commit arson. "Lucian," my lawyer said, looking at the messages, "stealing a $50 million cultural artifact and smuggling it out of the United States to a Swiss free port is a massive federal felony. It is international fraud and grand larceny on a monumental scale." We immediately filed a preemptive, highly classified registration of the true painting with Interpol and the federal authorities, locking the legal ownership entirely under my name. Then, we waited. Through the hidden security cameras I had secretly rewired in my lab, I watched the heist happen live. On Friday night, Tristan's unmarked, climate-controlled trucks backed up to my loading dock. I watched my wife happily direct men to load my booby-trapped replica into the trucks. But because I had tipped off the local fire marshal, the moment Vivian reached for the gallon of acetone to burn my lab down, local police burst through the doors. She was arrested on the spot for attempted arson. Tristan, however, was already on his private jet to Geneva with the crate. He had no idea his accomplice was in a jail cell. He was too busy getting ready for his $50 million payday.
Saturday night, the Geneva Freeport in Switzerland, the undisputed center of the elite, untaxed global art market. I wasn't in the room, but thanks to the hidden cameras authorized by the international authorities' sting operation, I watched the entire glorious execution live on my laptop. Tristan stood proudly next to the easel. The room was deathly quiet. The Saudi billionaire buyer walked in, flanked by massive security guards and an elite independent art authenticator holding a sleek silver briefcase. "Gentlemen," Tristan announced, his voice oozing with arrogance, "I present to you a lost piece of human history, the pupil of Da Vinci, flawless, untouched." He pulled the velvet drape off the canvas. The billionaire nodded in deep appreciation. It looked absolutely stunning. "It is magnificent," the buyer said. "But as agreed, the authentication." Tristan smirked, stepping back. "Of course, be my guest." The authenticator stepped forward. He pulled out a high-intensity, industrial-grade ultraviolet authentication lamp. He clicked it on, bathing the canvas in bright, violent purple light to check the age of the varnish. I looked at the clock on my screen. I knew the chemistry. 1 second, 3 seconds. At exactly 5 seconds of UV exposure, the photo-reactive polymer hit critical mass. The chemical bomb detonated. On the live feed, right in front of the billionaire, the magic violently died. The flawless, aged varnish on the painting suddenly hissed. It began to aggressively boil. The authenticator frowned, stepping back in shock. The molecular structure of the polymer completely collapsed. The clear lacquer rapidly expanded, bubbling uncontrollably like a toxic science experiment. Within seconds, the entire surface of the beautiful Renaissance portrait turned into a thick, dripping, pitch-black, opaque sludge. It completely obliterated the face of the Madonna. It looked like someone had poured boiling black tar over the canvas. A sharp, chemical smell of burning plastic filled the pristine vault. "What the hell is this?" the authenticator shouted, dropping his UV lamp and backing away as the black sludge dripped onto the pristine white floor of the Freeport. "This isn't a Renaissance varnish. This is a highly volatile synthetic modern polymer. It's a fake. It's a booby-trapped forgery." The billionaire buyer's face turned purple with absolute rage. He looked at Tristan. "You try to sell me a counterfeit melting piece of plastic for $50 million? You insult me?" Tristan froze, his jaw dropping. He stared at the bubbling black sludge in pure, unadulterated horror. No, I swear it was real. It's a chemical reaction. The conservator must have..." Before Tristan's security could even attempt to calm the billionaire, the heavy steel doors of the viewing room burst open. Agents from Interpol and the Swiss Federal Police marched directly into the vault, badges flashing. I took a slow, deeply satisfying sip of my coffee, smiled at the chaotic, screaming live stream, and closed my laptop.
You cannot unmelt a $50 million painting in front of a billionaire inside a highly secure Swiss vault. The fallout was an absolute unmitigated corporate massacre. Tristan was arrested on the spot by Interpol for massive international fraud, grand larceny, and attempting to sell counterfeit cultural heritage artifacts. Because he had guaranteed the authenticity of the piece, he was hit with massive lawsuits from the buyer and the Freeport authorities for contaminating the vault. When the authorities raided his corporate headquarters, they found evidence of dozens of other illicit, unregistered art deals. Tristan's entire $500 million empire completely collapsed. His investors pulled their funding immediately. He was facing 15 years in a European prison. Vivian's life was vaporized. Sitting in a county jail cell for attempted arson, she watched her entire escape plan burn to ash. Tristan, realizing he was facing international prison time, immediately threw her to the wolves, telling investigators that she was a rogue gallery director who had supplied him with the melting fake painting without his knowledge. She called me from the jail, sobbing so hard she was hyperventilating. Lucian, please. The police arrested me. Tristan dumped me. The painting melted into black tar. You have to tell them you made a mistake with the varnish. Please, I have nothing. I didn't make a mistake, Vivian, I said calmly, leaning back against my cleanroom table. I gave you exactly what you stole. You just forgot to test the UV stability. I have the video of you reaching for the acetone, by the way. I hope you enjoy the fluorescent lights in federal court. I hung up and blocked her number. During our divorce settlement, she had absolutely zero leverage. Because she was a federally indicted felon facing charges for conspiring to steal a $50 million marital asset and intentionally attempting arson, the judge showed zero mercy. He awarded me 100% of our marital assets, the house, and my entire laboratory. She walked away with massive legal debt and a permanently ruined life.
It's been almost 3 years since that sting operation in Geneva. A month after the arrests, I retrieved the real, flawless Renaissance masterpiece from the secure bank vault. Working in absolute peace, I finalized the provenance documents. I didn't sell it to a shady Freeport broker. I sold it legally and transparently to a major national museum consortium for $48 million, ensuring it would be displayed to the public forever. I paid off all my debts, bought a massive new commercial conservation facility, and I now resurrect lost history purely for the love of the science. I never have to answer to a corporate boss or worry about funding ever again. Last I heard, Vivian avoided a long prison sentence by taking a plea deal, but she is completely blacklisted from the fine art industry globally. She is currently working at a budget framing shop in a strip mall, putting cheap movie posters behind plastic glass, knowing every single day that she held a $50 million masterpiece and willingly traded it for a jail cell. Tristan is currently serving 8 years in a Swiss penitentiary, completely bankrupt, his art empire reduced to a punchline. If there is a lesson to be learned here, it's this. A beautiful exterior means absolutely nothing if the chemistry underneath is highly volatile. If your partner thinks they can use you as a stepping stone, steal your genius, and leave you to burn in the ashes while they take the applause, don't panic. Don't fight them for the canvas. Smile. Hand them the crate, and let them confidently unveil your creation in the brightest spotlight in the world. And right when they think they've won the auction, just wait for the light to hit it, and watch the rot completely consume them. Thanks for listening to my story. If you enjoyed this one, drop a like, hit subscribe, and let me know in the comments. What's the most satisfying public disaster you've ever witnessed? Stay sharp, trust the chemistry, and always verify the varnish.